Hello, my name is Sean Liming, and I'm a graduate student of history at Liberty University. Um, and today I'm giving a presentation on the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Of all the amendments, the Second Amendment is possibly the most polarizing amendment. The Second Amendment evokes passions on both sides of the debate towards gun control or the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment, which is only 27 words in length and was ratified in 1791, is as follows: a well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. In its most basic form, debate over the Second Amendment falls into two camps, as discussed by Robert Shallop in The Ideological Origins of the Second Amendment. One camp consists of those who believe that it is the right of American citizens to own and legally use firearms, and the second group includes advocates of restrictive gun legislation who emphasize collective rights and communal responsibilities. The two clauses of the Second Amendment add to these viewpoints. The pro gun group generally adhere to the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed clause, while the gun control group maintained that the Second Amendment deals with the well regulated militia clause of the Second Amendment. Now we can look at the history leading up to the composition of the Second Amendment. And according to Shallop, there are some keys for understanding the Second Amendment at the time of which it was written. And some of these keys include the American fear of standing armies, praise for militias made up of ordinary citizens, as well as the role of republicanism in American Revolution. So libertarian beliefs came to the United States or to the colonies from Europe through England and then on to her English colonies in America. For example, Niccolo Machiavelli saw the citizen warrior as the bulwark of a republic, while Sir Walter Raleigh warned that a tyrant would unarm his people of weapons, money, and other means by which they could resist his power. The individual states' Bill of Rights influenced James Madison when he and a committee wrote the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution. For example, let's consider the Bill of Rights of 3 states and how they address topics included in the Second Amendment, such as the New Hampshire Bill of Rights, which had 4 distinct articles to deal with the militia, standing armies, military subordination to the civil authority, and the individual bearing of arms. While contrasted with this is Pennsylvania, which had only 1 article, which read that the people have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state, and as standing armies in a time of peace are dangerous to liberty, they ought not to be kept up, and that the military should be kept under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. Virginia also had a single article which stated that a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state, that standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. James Madison and the committee who wrote the Bill of Rights desired to capture the essence of the rights that were demanded by Americans, and as well as the rights of the states to have a militia made up of ordinary citizens, into one amendment, that being the Second Amendment. According to Adam Winkler, in scrutinizing the Second Amendment, 42 of the 50 states have constitutional provisions guaranteeing an individual's right to bear arms. And here are some important legal cases and legislation that are dealing with Second Amendment issues. For instance, the United States versus Darrington in 2003 upheld the federal ban on felons' ownership of weapons. United States versus Patterson upheld the federal law barring possession of firearms by a user of a controlled substance. and the District of Columbia versus Heller, which ruled DC's ban on handguns as unconstitutional since a multitude of handguns are in private hands and in common use for self-defense. And according to Calvin Massey in the Second Amendment decision rules, the Heller ruling, at a minimum then, the individual right to bear arms extends to the right to carry firearms for the defense of self, family, and property. So how does the Second Amendment come into play today? To those who want to ban on all guns or certain types of firearms, as Massey pointed out, the Heller decision determined the Second Amendment extends to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not in existence at the time of the founding. And however, saying this, gun violence does play a role in American society today. According to Craig Whitney in 2014's article, A Liberal's Case for the Second Amendment, in the last 10 years, 30,000 American lives per year have been lost as a result of gun violence. 2/3 of these were suicides, but it should be noted the majority of these were done with handguns and not the assault rifle, such as the M4 pictured on the screen now. Part of the problem is the reactions of both sides to the gun control debate. Once again, according to Calvin Massey, he believes that a recognition of a limited individual right to gun possession, however, would allay the fear of gun enthusiasts that the ultimate aim of gun control advocates is to stamp out private gun ownership or possession. Those calling for banning of all firearms should realize the bans of all firearms is highly unlikely to occur in the United States. So in my opinion, there are some common sense approaches to this problem, and I've took some of these common sense approaches from Craig Whitney's A Liberal's Case for the Second Amendment, and they include provisions such as increased penalties for straw purchasers. A straw purchaser is a person who obtains firearms for somebody who would otherwise be it'd be illegal for them to obtain firearms on their own. Would be another provision would be making gun trafficking a federal crime. So the intentional selling or transporting of firearms to disqualified buyers. A third is an increase in universal background checks. So purchases through gun shops, this is in effect already, but according to Whitney, 20 to 40% of all gun sales are private and therefore not required to have background checks. And a provision that would make this happen, make this viable, would be that private gun deals would have to go through a gun shop or some other entity to get a background check conducted prior to the sale of that weapon. Another provision would be a stricter prosecution of buyers who falsify documents for background checks. And lastly, is improved mental health care system in the United States and reporting of potentially dangerous patients to prevent their acquisition of firearms. There is room for maintaining an individual's right to gun ownership while protecting our society from gun violence. Thanks for listening to my presentation. Please note the photo credit slide, as well as the sources used in the preparation of this presentation. Thank you.